Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
We are not, but we'll start anyway. Cheers from Brazil. Hello and welcome to FixerBrazil Podcast. My name is Tomás Cavalieri and I'm here with my associate Renato Falzoni. Hi, Renato.
Hello.
We are going to interview film professionals from the film industry from all over the world, and to talk about the pleasures and the journeys of filming in Brazil and also the challenges. So in this episode, we have with us Jamie Kennerley. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Renato.
Hi, Jamie. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in this episode. Jamie Kennerley is a director of photography, camera operator, and a self-shooting director with experience that spans documentary, drama, branded content, and commercials. Born and raised in the north of England, he now splits his time between Manchester and São Paulo, Brazil. Thank you very much, Jamie, for being with us.
Yeah, a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I'd like to start to ask you about why have you moved to Brazil?
So I moved to Brazil officially about 8 years ago. So it's a very similar story to a lot of gringos. So I met and married a Brazilian woman. We met in Manchester on a bus in Manchester, actually, many years ago, and my wife at the time was living in the UK. We slowly built a house here. We started about 11 years ago, building a house. And then when that house was kind of ready, we decided to just take a chance and we moved out here from the UK. We moved out here and we've been here ever since, really.
So when you came to Brazil, did you already work in the film industry? How did you get in the film industry?
Yeah, so when I came to Brazil, I already worked in the film industry. As a teenager, I made my own films, like a lot of people do, but I didn't do university for filmmaking. I did something else. I did French and music at uni. But then when I left uni, I started as a runner. I joined an animation company in Manchester as a runner, stop motion company. Then they made programs like Pingu and Bob the Builder, children's programs. And I stayed at that company for 5 years. But it was a great job at the time, because when I started as a runner, they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I think I want to do camera stuff. I want to do camera." So they said, "Well, you stay with us for 1 year as a runner, and then we'll train you we'll make you an assistant. We'll train you up into camera and lighting." So I stayed at that company for 5 years. It was a very old-fashioned trainee system, but which was brilliant. That kind of stuff doesn't exist really so much anymore. And then when I left there in 2007, I moved to London, and then just tried to find work doing whatever I could, really, filming whatever I could, And then that's really when I started as a self-shooter, you might say. And then I suppose over the years I started to get a bit more established. So by the time I moved to Brazil in 2016, I was already working as a director of photography. So at that time I was doing a mixture of stuff. I was doing branded content, but I was also doing a lot of TV. I was doing a lot of factual TV. I did a lot of TV that was a mixture of documentary and almost like fiction, really. So I did a lot of children's TV series, say programs about poetry or music or stuff like that. So when I moved to Brazil, I was already functioning. I was already working, but you kind of moving to a new city is one thing, but moving to a new country is huge. You have to just start again, really, because you have to start looking for work, in a country where you don't know anybody. So that's how I arrived to Brazil. That's what I was doing when I arrived.
When you came to Brazil, do you find cultural differences between both the industries? What can someone who comes from Europe and wants to film in Brazil expect when they come to film here?
Yeah, there are big differences. I think that probably one of the in my line of work, with the kind of work that I do, one of the biggest differences in terms of ways of working is that, for instance, in Europe, especially in the UK, we, for documentary, for branded content, we tend to work with small crews. There's a lot of self-shooters. The UK it's a big history of self-shooters, Europe as well. In Brazil, that's not so much the case. There's in the UK, for instance, major TV programs would be shot by one DOP, probably often without an assistant, one sound man, but even sometimes the DOP doing sound, and a director stroke producer. In Brazil, generally for TV shows, you would have bigger crews. You would have one or two camera assistants. You would possibly even still have like someone to do logging. Depends on the level of stuff that you're doing. And so this tradition that we've sort of, I suppose, was forced on us in Europe over the last 20 years to reduce crew sizes, has not really caught on in the same way in Brazil, And so I largely do shoot still for European or American or British clients, but often when I'm working for clients in here in Brazil, sometimes we have to do things in a different way to what they might be used to in Europe. So sometimes, we have to have an assistant where they wouldn't want an assistant, or where they wouldn't want to normally pay for an assistant, Sometimes, we have to spend a lot more time checking equipment before we take it from the rental company. In the UK, you just get equipment from rental companies and they work. It works, basically. You wouldn't spend a half a day going there, building the camera, checking it, checking all the lenses. Here, it's just part of what we do here. I mean, partly because historically maybe the equipment sometimes was a little bit dodgy, which is not really the case anymore. It's just that it's become part of the way stuff is done in the film and TV industry here. I actually think it makes sense, but sometimes those kind of things, they add a cost for productions or for clients that they're not perhaps used to having to think about in shoots in their hometown. What else is different? Like this thing about crew sizes is a really major thing. I don't do really big jobs as a rule. Like I don't do big commercials. I'm not really in that world very much. But I did do some work on a Coca-Cola commercial for the Olympics recently. I worked with the photographer. I wasn't shooting the main commercial. It's above my experience level. But I was working with the stills photographer, and I was shooting all the video for all the smaller Coke commercials. So like the stuff they use on social media, the stuff they do on Instagram and stuff. But the size of the crew was huge. I had never seen anything like it, and even the gaffer, who I know the gaffer from the main commercial, Valerio, of course we'll talk about Valerio. And even he says, no, this is like this, it was much bigger than even you would get in Europe. I mean, partly because perhaps on some level, labor, some roles are cheaper in Brazil. You'll pay less for some crew in Brazil than you would pay in Europe, and certainly less than you would pay in the US. But also just because, I don't know, on some level, like this work is hard. It's hard, heavy work that we do filming, whether we're like self-shooting, or whether you're working on a much bigger project. It actually makes sense to have more hands on deck. In Europe and in the in the UK, we've had this kind of forced onto us the last 20 years. We must reduce crews, we must reduce costs. And so we've all become like multitaskers. Whereas in Brazil, that's just not really the case. That's never really, perhaps also because of unionization a little bit. You know, roles are still very separated. And so consequently, you tend to need more people to get stuff done. You know?
That sounds very interesting, Jamie. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about one video and film that we have produced together, which you had many hands-on for XP. So I'll play a few images and then we can remember a little bit. So how was this shooting here for XP, the big tech IPO company, with Jeff Doghart from LA, the director, and you and Gaffer and assistants, and me and Renato. So I believe that was the first time we have worked together, right?
I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
So this was filming the XP office here in São Paulo. So how was this shooting? I think it was a week of shooting, right?
I think it was, yeah, I think I did 5 days on the job. And I think the job itself, I think you did about 6 or 7 in total, because there was a few days where I wasn't, I couldn't do it. So yeah, this was, I mean, this was a kind of, it was a big job for me at the time in Brazil. You know, I think I'm not sure I'd worked on something this level in Brazil before, you know. So it was, it was an Alexa. We had a Blackmagic as well, a second camera. It was a kind of a fairly pretty high level corporate film, which I think, as I remember, they were sort of using as, I mean, it became a 30-minute film, didn't it? Like they did it
38, 40 minutes.
I think they did it for, they were doing it for sort of part of their, I think they were about to go onto the stock market or something like that. It was nice. Yeah, it was nice. It was because it was a nice mixture of, it was a mixture of sort of really nice looking corporate interviews, but also lots of some kind of, I'm seeing myself with the Easy Rig there. I don't even remember that we had an Easy Rig, but yeah. So with a bunch of, and just hand holding the camera. Yeah. So really high level corporate interviews with a kind of a track and a dolly or a slider, but then also a bit of like run and gun B-roll. And sometimes I remember that the director was a DOP himself, a really experienced DOP, and sometimes he would take the camera and just go and shoot his own stuff. But it was great because and then I'm seeing this now. I remember we had this really nice backdrop at one point for some of the interviews, and it was a really fun job. You know, a lot of equipment. A lot of equipment. I'm looking at that now.
No, we had a room like packed with gear, right?
Yeah. It was like, it was a lot of gear. It was a big old dolly. It was a big slider, lots of lighting, lots of backdrops. There's us on top of was that the same building? That was on top of the roof, wasn't it?
Yes, but this is another place. We did some B-roll on the streets.
Yeah, I remember that. We were on the over the road there. Yeah. Oh, I've still got that photo on my website, I think.
No, and it's nice because it tells a lot about also the director's style, because Jeff was a DP also and has some experience, so he allowed to have these more free moments that you don't have to be attached to all the gear and to do some pickups.
Yeah. Jeff is like a really, really resourceful director. So he does. I think he's from the world of sort of car commercials, which obviously is like there's a pretty big setups. But he could equally, you know, he was equally super comfortable with taking a camera handheld and just grabbing what he wanted. Because, so it was nice to work with someone like that.
When I look at these images of this XP job. I think one of the good things since this job we worked with you many times is that because of your background you can help translate not in English terms but in terms of culture and style of filming the what the director wants and what we need from the Brazilian crew, because normally we're working with a director who is foreigner, right, and a crew who is Brazilian. So we need to.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a role that I tend to find myself in a lot, really. Just by, I mean, it's just bound to happen, just by virtue of me being a gringo living and working here. So, yeah, and that's an interesting thing to talk about, really, because I do find myself in that position quite a lot, and I actually enjoy that as part. It's become part of what my job here is, I think, in terms of especially when because sometimes I'm just shooting for clients that don't come. They send me, as you guys do, they send me what they want, and then I have to kind of execute that. But nobody comes from abroad. But then often when the clients do come, there is a sort of a deeper translation that tends to go on, which is not just about the words. It's about figuring out how to facilitate that in a way that makes sense for the Brazilian crew, and that is also going to meet the needs of the client. So I think perhaps in my early days here, maybe I was a bit resistant to sort of playing that role, and it's just become the norm. It's exactly what you guys do. It's like how do we work in the way that makes sense to work locally, but basically to meet the needs of what your foreign clients need. So that's part of the skill, isn't it?
Yes, and it's interesting because listening to you speak about this, you're describing exactly what we're trying to do when we meet the clients to break this cultural barrier, because usually we are, as a film crew, like traveling all together many days, long days, so we have to become a family, right? So, and break some of these barriers. And Brazil is so big that filming in the Amazon is different from filming in the big São Paulo metropolis or filming in the countryside to interact with people. So I know that you did a couple of jobs also where you were like not only filming and one-man crew, but also producing. Tell me a little bit about your experience with this.
Yes, so the majority of what I do is kind of shooting, but I do in maybe really in the last year, I think I started to take on small jobs as a producer as well, and I think often that would sort of come in as part of a need that a client wanted, was they don't just want a DOP or a camera operator, or they need somebody to do the local production. And so normally I would pass that on to other people. And then sometimes it just made sense for me to do it, so some jobs I don't tend to do, I don't do jobs, I don't produce jobs the size of the XP job we were just looking at, but so often when it makes sense, I will take on a production role as well, because then then I'm kind of, I have eyes over the whole thing, So I started to do that a bit more recently, not just staying within my comfort zone, I think, really, but like because also sometimes it saves the, it kind of saves money for the client as well, and it's been also really good practice for me to kind of exercise new muscles, I still really, I really enjoy shooting. I did do a job last year where I didn't shoot at all, where I just did the local production for an American crew, which was one thing that was really great, was to like get up in the morning and not have to touch any equipment, not have to think it, not have to carry like 12 cases, and understand what's in all of them, just do the production. And that was I really enjoyed that. I don't think I want to do that. So I don't think I want to do that 100% of the time, but I have enjoyed that experience as well. It makes it much easier when you have that kind of responsibility. It makes it much easier for me to like understand what you guys do, and the same responsibilities that you carry on your shoulders, So yeah, it's all good.
I think we can talk about another job that we did, which was sort of the opposite of XP. It's a job that was this job that we're talking about. It was the opposite in terms of our main job as fixers was logistics and because we were flying in a small charter plane, right? Also, we were limited in terms of weight and gear. Camping and charging batteries in the generator, right? Tell us about how this job was.
Yeah, so like you say, this was totally the opposite of XP, and we did it we were very, very deep into the Amazon, the Brazilian Amazon, fairly close to the Colombian border, as I remember. And so, yeah, we flew to Manaus. We then flew to São Gabriel de Cachoeira. We then took a boat for maybe 5 hours. Yeah, all the way up the river there. So, and it's hard work, isn't it? Like, it's heavy work. Like, we were, as I remember, there were 3 of us. So, Tom, you were the on-ground producer, sort of location producer, and there was myself shooting, and then was Ryan from the client, and heavily reduced camera kit. We still took 2 cameras. You always have to take 2 cameras, don't you, places like this, because if one breaks, you're in trouble. So 2 cameras, and then we were camping, and then it's true, yeah, you have to think about, we even took our own cutlery. We took plates, dishes, knives and forks, cups, and yeah, it's tough and it's tiring, it's exciting as well, but it's like, it is kind of just the effort of getting to these places is really tiring. And then you're expected, we have to then shoot once we get there and carry on. And the way back was crazy, wasn't it, Tom? Because we took a boat for 27 hours, and it wasn't a boat with a bed.
No, it was like a local line boat, not this one that we see right now, but slightly bigger. But 27 hours, yeah, downriver. This is going up. Yeah, this is the location where we are filming.
That shot was in the film. I remember that shot from the actual film.
Yeah, I think so. If not this one, another one close to this one. I was flying the drone, so we were in 3 people. I was doing the drone footage. And so as we got there was a big logistics, because these guys, the EDS, Expedicionários da Saúde in Portuguese, they are used to build like a surgical center in the middle of the forest, which you can see in the footage, like those tents, big tents in the back. But we had them on the background, but we are like in a real, if there's a remote place, this is one, right?
Yeah,
but
but the actual content of what we were doing, by the time we, once we'd got there and could actually kind of pitch our tent and relax, and exactly, there you go, actually start to feel like you've got equipment to use, which takes its own time, it was great. We were looking, so this was a mobile hospital, wasn't it? It was a mobile hospital for people of these indigenous communities, and some people travel for a day or longer, I think, just to get there, to have kind of what would normally be simple operations like cataracts or hernias removed or treated. And yeah, we essentially were documenting that, but also looking for small personal stories within that we could use, they could use as the backbone of the storytelling. But it was great,
So this experience that you said that you had in UK, in the back, or the culture of the UK to go more run and gun or guerrilla style when you need, of course, helped you in your career?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Because because I mean, there simply wasn't, for instance, there was no budget to take an assistant. So, and you guys were doing sound, and Ryan, the client, is a shooter, and as I remember, he did do some of the shooting as well. But yeah, that's very much how I'm kind of used to shooting in the UK, so yeah, so it definitely absolutely helped me with a job like that.
And when you're in a job like this, in a remote area like this, do you think you enjoy it? Do you have time to enjoy, or it's so rushed that you don't really
Nah,
the place?
no, I mean, enjoy the place, you mean?
Yes.
On this one, I think we weren't super rushed, but equally you have a limited amount of daylight in the day. You have a limited amount of hours in which to accomplish things. But no, we did enjoy it. Like I remember, I think we would often be down at the river. Either I can't remember when we would see sun, whether it was sunrise. I think it's sunrise was amazing. Sunrise and then sunset was somewhere else. But no, you do. I mean, because also these kind of stories, they're not mega rushed. We weren't running around crazy. We had stuff to capture, but there was plenty of time in the day to capture that.
Yeah, remember we had a script, very good script that to tell the story, so we knew exactly what we needed to capture.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some other stuff in the Amazon where, like, I did my first, the second time I went to the Amazon, it was a 30-day job, and we were living on boats off the coast of Barcelos, and we would have, it was an American reality TV show, but we would have days sometimes where we couldn't film. It's a different pace out there, isn't it? It has its own piece, and also generally once it gets dark, there isn't much to do apart from have dinner and then just relax, because you can't film anything.
And how do we prepare for a trip like this, like to get the smallest pack of gear possible, but at the same time don't miss anything that you need there, because there's no way to find any extra batteries or anything like that.
Yeah.
And also regarding like camping clothes, I don't know if you have done it many times.
At this stage now, I've traveled a lot around Brazil and South America as well for filming, and so I kind of have a system. Really that I feel safe with. Like, I mean, you need 2 cameras. Ideal situation would be 3 cameras, but that's not always possible, because it costs money. But I have doubles of many things. I have doubles of battery chargers. I have 3 battery chargers, for instance, for my camera. I have some batteries of different makes that will charge differently on, some will charge on one charger, some won't. I have multiple card readers. I have different types of cards. I have a couple of tripods, one a more travel tripod, one a normal tripod. I think like doubling up on things is a really technical wise is a really safe way is a generally pretty safe way to travel. You definitely need, and that sometimes that kind of thing sometimes can be tricky to get clients to understand that a job like that, even though it was with a limited budget, there's still a certain amount of money that had to be spent on the equipment, because you need backups. Basically, you totally need backups. So that's equipment wise. I mean, this one we even had to take cutlery and plates and mugs and stuff, which is kind of cool. Like, I generally take two air beds in case one pops. Which I did. It did happen on this one, actually. Lessons learned. Yeah, you need multiple things, and also you need like any media that you want to watch, films, TV series, make sure they're all downloaded onto your phone or even onto your computer, because otherwise, I mean, we did actually have internet. We had Starlink there, didn't we? We had the Elon Musk. But most of the times I've been into the jungle, there is no connection. So you need to make sure you've got stuff to maintain your own peace, because it's not just, it's not just about the shooting. It's about all the, the rest of the time in the morning or the night time when actually you kind of want something to do. And so you have to think about that beforehand.
Sure.
I don't know if you want to talk about you talked about the film that he did everything about, that he sent us, that you were like the director and the film, the producer.
Oh yeah.
And before we finish, I want to go back to the house in Paraty, but
Sure.
about this this film that you did, if you want to talk about it.
Sure, yeah. So I did a film last year for the United Nations Environment Program, UNEP, which was a film about it was a film about sort of protection projects for the Atlantic rainforest. So so on this one I did everything. I shot it, I edited, I directed, and I produced with the help of a friend of mine. But essentially I kind of took on the whole project, which is not, I don't normally even edit stuff, but I decided it came my way and I just said yes to it, and it was great. We shot in various kind of inland places in the state of São Paulo and one place in Minas Gerais state. And on one level, it was great just to actually be involved in the kind of the research and the building the interview questions, actually trying, building the story, like how are we going to tell the story, and also the flip side of that, actually doing the editing when you come to do the editing and you realize some things that you do have, some things that you don't have, and so I think in a way that also made me a better shooter, having done that film, because I, obviously because you realize when you come to edit the mistakes that you made and how you would do things the next time. So that was, it's rare that I do like 100% of a project, but that was it felt like my baby when I was doing it, because I was totally responsible for it.
Both Tomás and I, we have this background also. We started as editors.
Okay.
And then we started as editors, then we started shooting, then we started directing. And when you edit, you learn so much about shooting, because
totally.
you see what you need, right? So I recommend this as you said, you started as a runner, so I think that when you have this background of doing a lot of stuff in the film industry, you understand the needs and
absolutely, yeah.
Before we finish, and I'll let you have the final word, I was looking at some pictures of your house, and you not only moved to Brazil, but you really moved to Brazil, because from the pictures I see you live in the middle of the jungle, right? In a amazing place, because Paraty is already an amazing place. It's a colonial city of Brazil, but you live in the sertão, right? In the jungle. Tell us about your house and how was your history of meeting and building this unique place?
So we built a house in the mountains in Paraty. Like you said, Paraty is a kind of a UNESCO protected, almost World Heritage site. They didn't quite get the title, but and so we built a house from scratch. We built a house from shipping containers. It's not like we didn't do anything particularly exciting with shipping containers. We just put them one next to the other. We built a base, but then outside the house, we built a whole load of stuff. We built like a plunge pool. This here was our sort of meditation pod, but that rotted in the humidity, unfortunately. So that doesn't exist anymore. But we built like a plunge pool, various different levels, and at the bottom of the garden essentially is the cachoeira, is the river. But I mean, as you know, building a house is like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. You know, it's been a lot of work. It's been great. It's been hard sometimes, but the experience has been amazing. You know, and everything that we could do ourselves, we did ourselves. We did all the electrics. We did all the walls. We did all the decorating. And we worked with a neighbor of ours at the time, at the start, who was a builder. So he did the concrete base for the house. All the big concrete stuff he did for us. And then everything else, like even that staircase we did ourselves there. All these staircases we did ourselves. But just we learned from other people, basically. We learned from other people, and then we were like, okay, let's try it ourselves.
And do you have internet connection there?
We do, yeah, we do. We've got, normal. That's where I am right now. So we've got normal. I mean, for years we didn't. For years we used to just use these little 3G dongles. It was a nightmare. We'd have to sort of leave them on top of the bathroom cabinet to try and get signal. But now we have normal broadband fiber optic, which is amazing. Yeah. I mean, we are in the jungle, but we have neighbors. You know, it's a rural place, but people have lived here for 20, 30 years. Well, for longer, obviously. But, you know, we have a road. We just don't have a photo of that road.
And how far from the city are you?
It's 15 minutes by car.
Okay. And how did you... Is your wife from Paraty or the region?
No,
or?
my wife is from São Paulo. We came here on holiday many years ago, and then my sister-in-law was living here, and we came to stay with her for 1 month. And every day we would go up the road, swim in the river, and then the same cachoeira, the same waterfall every day. And then one day we saw a sign next to the entrance to the river, like land for sale, and then we called the number, and then that led to buying the piece of land. But we didn't really have, even when we were building the house, we didn't really have the intention of living here full time. We just thought we would do that and kind of see what happened, really, you know, maybe a holiday home, but in the end we're living here. So.
But do you have another small apartment here in São Paulo?
I have a small little apartment in São Paulo, yeah.
Like a base for you here when
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, we bought that during the pandemic, you know, and because after the initial period of no work, when work started to come back, I would travel to São Paulo, and I couldn't stay with friends because people weren't opening their homes, and so I would stay in hotels, and that just started to make us think, well, maybe it would make sense to look to see if we could buy something. So we bought something really tiny in Centro, but it's a perfect base for work. Yeah.
And what are your upcoming projects now?
Upcoming projects: a 50-60 minute film for Bloomberg. That would film in Brazil around the PCC, the gang, and their bank robberies. That's still in the early stages, but it looks like it will probably happen. And then next month I'm on a corporate job, sort of corporate stroke branded content, filming with doctors in different cities around Brazil, and Buenos Aires as well.
What would you, if I ask you to send a message to a producer who is planning to come to shoot in Brazil, give like an advice or tips or summarize a little bit about what he can expect to find
Yeah.
it?
I think I would say that, you know, first thing I would say is Brazil is like the most amazing country in the world. Like, it's incredible. Like, it has, you know, in terms of cities, landscapes, wilderness, apart from snow, it has pretty much everything. You know, it's an exciting country. It's a really dynamic country. The people are amazing. You know, the people are amazing. It's a very loving, giving country. It's also a very complex country. You know, it's, you know, politically it's complex. There's divisions within societies, but all that kind of stuff is one of the many reasons people come to film here, to document this kind of stuff. You know, and I think after that I would say, like, listen to the locals, like listen to you guys, because you guys will always have the best understanding of how to deal with what you're filming, of how to approach it, of how to crew it, of how to best manage transport. There's certain things that need to be thought about here that you wouldn't have to think about in Europe, like security, logistics, transport. That kind of stuff is more complex, and so it's more crucial that you listen to the locals on that stuff, who will suggest the best way to do it, even when that might be different to how you would be working normally. But it is an amazing place to shoot.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and thank you for talking to us in this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Do you want to share some place where people can find you online?
Yeah, my website is jamiekennerley.com. My Instagram is @jamie.kennerley. Pretty simple. It's a slightly unusual name, so I'm easy to find if you stick it in Google. But those are the two main places, I think.
Amazing. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Renata. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And thanks for watching this FixerBrazil podcast. If you need to film here in Brazil, anywhere in Brazil, contact us. We love to help. See you in the future episodes.